Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Truth Be Told, a show about all things local to Plymouth Town government. And with me, your host and the town manager, Melissa Arrighi. The show is just another way that we're trying to do outreach to the public. If you ever have an issue that you would like me to discuss on the show, please let me know. You can reach me by email. You can call me. There's all kinds of contact information that they're displaying right now that will let you know how to reach me. And if there's something you read about, you want to know more about, or something that you hear at the coffee shop, I'm happy to address that too. Typically in a spotlight, I do at the end of the show when there's a rumor or some misinformation out there that I want to correct. Today on the show, we have Chad Hunter, Plymouth Harbormaster. If you follow me on Twitter, you all saw the tweet that I put out there that now it's become almost that I have to do it. So this week I think it was a little poem I did about you, Chad, saying that you were coming on the show. It certainly wasn't any secret because then I showed you a picture of you. But welcome, I'm glad you could be here with me today, especially because I know how busy you are in July.
Melissa, thank you for having me on the show. I always look forward to those tweets and the clever ways you use words. But yes, that was really nice, and I'm glad to be here.
Good. So the first thing I want to talk about is I think what's on everybody's mind as they drive down there, the beautiful new building and the old Harbormaster shack, which I am very fond of. It's iconic. It's in all the pictures and what our plans are for that building. And as we talk about it, I know that we will be showing some pictures. So the first one we're going to show right now is your new facility. This is an aerial view you provided to us. Tell us about the new building and what it was like to be involved in what I think was your first big construction project.
Yes, absolutely. So it was a lot of ups and downs along the way. The building came out really great, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from people, not only as it was being built, but now that it's finished. This started back, this concept or project, back in 2005, we put in transient moorings. Plymouth was always viewed as a very difficult place to visit by boat. All of our moorings in the Inner Harbor are privately owned moorings, and there wasn't really much availability for a visiting boater here in Plymouth. We do have Safe Harbors Plymouth, which has some transient dockage, and the Yacht Club has always had some moorings available, but they weren't able to meet the need. So back in 2005, we went before the Visitors Service Board, and we were able to get money for 5 transient moorings as sort of a test to see how that would work. And initially they were out beyond the harbor, right inside Plymouth Beach, and we didn't charge anything for them. They were free to visiting boaters, and they filled really fast, and we had plenty of people returning year after year to use them. And then really the demand was there, and even that demand was exceeding what we had to offer. The one downside for the location being outside of the harbor was we wanted to encourage people to come ashore, and that really wasn't doing that. It's still kind of a long boat ride at night in a small dinghy. It's not really that you don't want to go that distance. So we tried to bring them into the Inner Harbor, and over the years we've been able to do that. So offering those moorings, we started to charge to keep the costs, to basically cover the cost for the moorings. So we started with a minimal $35 a night for them to stay. And once we brought them in closer to town, like in the Inner Harbor, we had the people were a little more likely to come ashore, go to the restaurants, and kind of go back and forth throughout the day, which was great. What we really started to hear, though, was feedback, where we were sort of lacking, and that's kind of where this maritime facility really started. A majority of the other offerings had showers, bathrooms, laundry. We didn't have any of that at the old building, and the town didn't have that to provide. So that was just kind of a note that we had tucked away, and thought that at some point, if we do a building, or if we have any new infrastructure downtown, maybe we could include that those offerings in the building. And this isn't just a Plymouth thing. I mean, obviously, I talked to all the other harbor masters statewide, and a lot of really busy visitor destinations. And that was really what they already provided, and we were sort of lacking on that end. So back in 2014, town meeting approved a building assessment. They funded, to sort of take a look at all of the town buildings. And when they approved that at town meeting, I kind of had this sinking feeling, because I knew what was coming for the old Harbormaster shack. And unfortunately, I love that building as well. Obviously, that's where I started when I was a kid working there. Obviously, from Water Street, it stands out on the pier by itself.
Wait a
it
minute,
looks
Chad.
great.
So while you're talking about your fond memories of this building, worked there for years, and I know that you actually did some of the work inside of there. I mean, I don't remember if you did that. God, I remember I'd climb up that ladder to go up to an office. But as I'm going to have PAC TV show those pictures while you're talking about, how wonderful this iconic building is. But go ahead.
So I really, there's, I guess that there's sentimental value to that building, let's say. And, from Water Street, the building really fits, Plymouth and the waterfront. It's in tons of photographs, paintings. So we really do miss the building. But when you see the inside and you're working out of that space, I think that's where it was really lacking. And, the stairs, well, I don't even want to call them stairs. I think it's more compared to a step ladder, than it is stairs. Those were always a concern and always an issue whenever the stairs would get wet. I've taken the ride down the stairs a few times in my career. And the water situation and bathroom situation, it's where it was out on a pier. We had seasonal water. Once the temperatures dropped below freezing, we had to shut off the water, blow out the pipes, and we were in that building through the winter without running water or a bathroom. So yeah, those are some of the issues that we ran into. And that the space, obviously the view was amazing. That's part of our job is really looking out over the harbor and the water and seeing what's happening, situational awareness. And that was great, being out on the end of the pier. But obviously there were some pieces that needed to be addressed. And that was just our space. We didn't have any room for transient bathrooms and showers. So when the conditional assessment came out, they obviously captured a lot of those shortcomings of the Harbormaster shack. And we sort of understood that that's not much of it was to code. It wasn't ADA accessible. No running water in bathrooms. We knew that was going to be an issue. So shortly after, we actually went to Seaport in 2016, the Seaport Economic Council, and we proposed to them this very similar model to what other towns had been doing, sort of a maritime facility concept, where it's a harbormaster office, transient boater facilities, and public restrooms, all combined in one building. And Seaport has been really great to the town over the years, and they actually funded the design and permitting for this building. So at the same time, we were going through the harbor planning process as well, which was also Seaport funded. And a harbor plan is basically a master plan for the harbor itself. Very harbor centric. We pull in all the stakeholders and kind of ask them, what do you want to see? What do you see in the future? The next 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. So it was really actually kind of an interesting process, but we were able to really document the need for not only the transient facilities, but the public restrooms that would be available to boaters. And it wasn't just, town staff saying that we needed these things. It was the public, it was the boaters that documented this. So that was really great. We ended up, the architect that we found for the building actually was working on in Newburyport. They were doing a maritime facility up in Newburyport, and I think I was Google searching Harbormaster buildings just to get an idea of what's out there and what sort of concepts exist. And we found the, I guess it would be like the sketch of the Newburyport building, and it like clicked. I mean, it just kind of fit. And if you've been to Newburyport, it's a very similar town feel. So we ended up going with Olson and Lewis, Chris Doctor, our architect. We kind of found him through the Newburyport maritime facility that he was working with Newburyport on. And the design, it was almost like a model maritime facility, similar to schools. And I saw Tom on your show a couple of weeks ago, and same thing with the airport building. And so we actually got the benefit of touring Newburyport before this building went to construction, and we were able to kind of walk through some of these spaces, which was extremely helpful. And pretty much from the transient, there's sort of the three pieces of the maritime facility. The transient facility and the public restrooms are almost identical to Newburyport. We did have to change the orientation of the Harbormaster building to kind of capture the view here, because Newburyport, they're on the river, and it's kind of a 180-degree view that they needed to capture. So we had some challenges on siting the building, and we ultimately had some changes that we had to make to capture that view. We went to Springtown meeting in 2018 for construction funding. That was quite the process. I knew, for me, this was probably one of the biggest asks we've had to town meeting. And, I did a lot of work with Dave to kind of get out to the precinct meetings, explain the project. And one of the other pieces that we wanted to do was try and help offset the cost to the town through either grant funding or revenue that the building would derive. And we knew that Seaport had funded the permitting and the design, and we knew we were going to go back to them for a request for construction funding as well. They have a $1 million cap on their project, so we actually went back to them for that $1 million. But we had to go to town meeting not knowing whether we were going to get the $1 million from Seaport. And I was actually really surprised. Town meeting was very supportive of the project and the concept, kind of including these other transient facilities and public restrooms into the Harbormaster building. And it was a really, really great, I think, I don't remember the vote exactly, but it was overwhelmingly in favor, which was pretty amazing. And shortly after that, we went to Seaport. We actually presented up in Marshfield. They had a Seaport meeting with the Marshfield Maritime Facility opening, presented to them and said, hey, look, the town has already approved the money, but we have this grant request in, and they approved us for $1 million to offset.
I would stay up for that. I'm going to show a picture. I haven't set them yet, but this is all of us that were at that. We were so excited because you're right. Seaport Economic Council has been so wonderful to the town of Plymouth. I mean, we've benefited tremendously, and the lieutenant governor is still chair of that council.
Right.
Yes. And really supportive of the town. I'm assuming you no longer ever call it a Harbormaster shack.
Well, yeah, it's not a shack anymore. We've been trying to stick with the maritime facility to kind of, it's all encompassing. It's not just the Harbormaster office. Yes, and that term has, I've heard people call it other things like Taj Mahal and pieces like that, but it's, yes, the shack, the Harbormaster shack is still on Town Wharf. That's the old building. Right. And now we're in the maritime facility. So sort of to kind of continue with the ups and downs, we, did great with funding. We tried to build in some of the revenue from the transient boaters. So we, upped our rate. We went from $35 a night to $65 a night. And we actually looked at that over sort of the lifespan of the building and we were able to kind of keep up with the costs. So between the Seaport Award and the revenue that was coming in from the Transient Boaters, we were able to almost cover 100% of the costs associated with the facility, which I think that sort of outside of the box idea of, supporting the project with revenue, I think really resonated with the town meeting and obviously the support that we got. So that was great. Everything was going really well. We went out to bid, I think it was December 2018, after securing this funding. And initially it was a $3.5 million project, and the bids came back, and even the low bid was over budget. So we went from a very high point to, oh my God, what are we going to do now? We had this Seaport grant that we have to use or we lose it. And then we obviously have town meeting that approved the budget. And a lot of that was just the construction market at that point. I think construction, there was a lot of groundbreaking, materials went up, labor went up, and we were kind of victim to a very competitive market, and the bids came in over. So we quickly went back to the building committee, and we kind of gave them that update. And, the next step was to, what can you sort of value engineer, to bring the cost down and then get back out to bid. So we looked at a few different pieces to value engineer. We went out to bid again with sort of the value engineering as bid alternates to see if we could incorporate some of the things they thought, like siding, roofing, were, possible, ways to sort of bring the cost down. And we went back out to bid, and the numbers were still high. We also, while we were going back out to bid, we put in for additional funding for Springtown meeting, thinking that if we weren't able to get the cost down, if we wanted to see this project move forward, then we're going to have to go back to town meeting, which is that's never fun, right?
Oh, I mean, it's so hard.
Right. And you feel terrible. You say, this is the budget and we want to stick with it. And I was pretty torn. It's like, well, we should just try and make this work at $3.5 million and get the project done somehow, some way. But the building committee and David were like, okay, we gotta go back. We need some contingency here to see this forward. And we did go back before town meeting. And surprisingly, again, a lot of the pieces that we were going to value engineer to try and bring the cost down, most of the town meeting members were quite opposed to us doing that. This building is in a coastal environment. It's sort of the first building to the east where, it's getting hammered with wind and rain and all of the elements and salt water, salt air. So they, I think we're very cautious. They said, no, you know what? We should do a metal roof, and we should do, the upgraded siding, because the longevity and, taking care of that building, it made more sense. And so again, we went back to town meeting, and we got a lot of support, and luckily, we were able to increase the budget to include all of the pieces that we originally sort of included in the building, and that's what you have here today. And
when are you going to have an open house? People want to see it. When do you schedule an open house for everybody? And the weather's been so lousy, in my opinion, this summer. Are you still getting the transient boaters coming here?
So this has kind of been the transient boaters, and even last year, believe it or not, we figured we wouldn't have any transient boaters. Last year was actually a pretty good year for us. I think boating in general, that was one thing people could do and stay socially distanced. So last year, the summer, while, many of the other areas were sort of depressed, they just, boating was hot. People were buying boats, new boats, used boats. They couldn't keep up with the inventory that was going out the doors. We had a lot of first-year boaters, but it was the one thing that you could do with your family and kind of stay away from others. So
That must have kept
boating,
you even busier, because
it was.
one time, first time boater, everything we did was a disaster. So if my husband and I are any example of what you should not do when you first buy a boat and you have no experience, I can imagine your staff was busy with that.
Yes, yeah. Last year was actually quite a busy year for us. Luckily, the numbers stayed sort of low through last summer, so we were in pretty good shape with staff. And but yeah, it was a really busy year. And transient boating, or people, you know, taking vacations, boating around, again, they were sort of in their own little bubble, being on their own boat. It was really the only way, or one of the few ways, that people were traveling and getting some sort of vacation in while kind of maintaining their own little bubble. So we did see quite a few transients last year. Unfortunately, the facilities, this building, you know, was late in August when we were able to kind of move in. And even when we did move in, the restrooms and the showers weren't available for really our busiest summer months. So this year, we're finally starting to see and realize the improvement that we've made. And, you know, the public bathrooms have been super busy. We obviously got our big test on the July 5th events. The boat ramp is a really popular place to watch the fireworks from. So we see some pretty heavy crowds here. In the bathrooms, it was just like people were coming and going, and it was really nice to see, you know, these facilities get used. And obviously on the transient side, the showers, those have been open this year, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that. It's almost one of those things, like once you have it, you kind of forget what it was before.
Like, right.
Yeah. And so, you know, a lot of the boaters that we have visiting now are sort of going to be looking for that in the future. So it's really been nice to utilize the building, you know, as sort of designed.
I have to imagine that you've been through that you've been through that whole process now with town meeting twice, because we did have to go back. I can't imagine in your career you're going to want to do it again, but thankfully with that building, you won't need to. I can't believe we only have a few minutes left. So first I want to ask you, the nautical flags hanging behind you, what do they say? Does it say
yeah, so that it was a way to add some color. We actually did it at the Harbormaster Shack for a year or two as well, and it was just kind of a neat way to sort of add some color. The flags say Plymouth.
Oh, Plymouth.
Yep. Yep. So it was, it was just kind of a way to dress up the harbor a little bit and add some color, not only at the old building. We had smaller flags. They were 1-foot flags. For the new building, we had to get 2-foot flags, but we had them displayed over the holiday weekend. And it's just kind of a neat way to mix it up. Yeah. Yeah.
It looks good. Now, the last thing you need to talk about is how good are you, Chad Hunter, or how well do you know flag etiquette? Because boy, do I get a lot of emails about where you fly the American flag and when. Can you just wrap up the show by talking about the fact that we are not doing it wrong? We have full respect for the American flag.
Yep. So we, one of the maritime components here at the Maritime facility was to install a Maritime Flagpole, which is somewhat unique because it has a gaff, which kind of extends off the flagpole itself. And what that represents is like a ship. So a ship would fly, it's an American flagged vessel. The American flag flies off the stern of the ship, off the gaff. So that's how you would normally see the flag displayed on a vessel. And then usually in the taller masts, sometimes depending on the waters that they're cruising, they would have, another flag, which actually is going to be higher than the American flag. But the gaff is where the American flag is flown. That's the place of honor on a ship. So our flagpole is sort of set up very similar. And when we first put it up, we put all the flags up and we immediately started getting complaints about flags being higher than the American flag.
Right.
So much so that we put up flag etiquette on the website. We had a little a printout that we sort of taped to the flagpole so people could see it, but they didn't want to hear it. And I completely understand. And it's funny, the company that put up the flagpole, they were like, do you want to just take the gaff off now? Because you're going to get complaints. And, you know, the Navy guys and, you know, I guess the folks that were in the maritime world understand it and they think it's pretty neat. But for most, they, you know, were quite upset that we were not, you know, the American flag wasn't the highest on the pole. We did run into a few issues flying the flag off the gaff, though. It actually gets sort of wrapped and torn. And so in some cases, we've actually flown the flag on the main mast, and it's always sort of the highest flag, which sort of helped with the complaints to some degree. But there's also some people that feel like if you have a gaff, it needs to be on the gaff.
Right.
So we're kind of working through those issues. I want everybody to be happy.
Good luck with that.
True. We, you know, so we're doing our best, but, you know, it may come to a point where we either gotta, you know, fix the flagpole in the sense that it's not going to tear up our flags, fly it off the gaff all the time, or have it removed and just use the main mast.
Well, thank you. I know you're still looking at that, and I'm sure that you can have, you know, one of the committees weigh in. I mean, we can definitely get some assistance. Listen, Chad, that's all the time we have. So I have to let you go, but thank you so much for being on the show. And for everybody that's watching, thank you for tuning in. The show is taped weekly, and we put all the times that it's available to watch are listed below. And again, if you ever have any ideas or something you want me to cover on the show, I'm happy to do it. We have a great guest next week too. So I hope you tune in regularly. Take care.